Can have the simplicity of Canva, but the powerfulness of Photoshop. It used to be that you had to choose between powerful or simple. I think now, no, because of the power of AI, we're gonna do research on aesthetics, controllability, and hyper-personalization, because those three areas of research we don't think are being focused as much. Y Combinator that are known for make something people want. And when I think of something that clearly people will want, they start asking stuff like, what's your ideal customer? It's like, go back to your own roots. You have the answer.
Hello everyone and welcome to the new episode of AI Without Borders. I'm thrilled to have Diego Rodriguez, founder of Krea.ai. Krea is building an interface for creative professionals and enthusiasts to use AI tools through a unified platform that offers multiple model providers. Krea recently announced their Series B round and have raised $83 million in total from investors like Bain Capital Ventures and A16Z. Their platform has been used by over 20 million users. But most importantly for this podcast, Diego has deep roots in Latin America, having grown up in Venezuela. Diego, welcome. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So maybe starting from the beginning, when were you first exposed to the world of AI?
I would say that was in my second year of college, because that's when we started learning about compression. And then soon after, we started learning that there was a way to program computers only by showing data instead of explicitly giving them instructions.
That's great. And maybe for people who are not familiar with Krea, can you give a quick description of what Krea does and what would you say is the biggest problem that Krea is trying to solve?
Yeah, so for everyone who has ever used something like Adobe, they have this creative suite of tools, right? Like back in the day, Flash, but then also Photoshop and Illustrator. So Krea is nothing more than an attempt to do that again, but with this new medium that is AI. So sometimes we say an AI creative suite, other times we say creative toolbox for AI.
One of the things that helped make Krea viral was the real-time editing feature. Like, why do you think was the case that made Krea viral, and was it something that you all expected before launching that new feature?
I mean, it's weird to answer this in the sense of a lot of people don't know this, like not even in the video that got released very recently from HF0, which is our first investor, but we literally applied to HF0 with a real-time tool to modify AI. That was literally our first ever idea. The only difference was that the technology was not there. Like the AI images that you would be able to make in roughly real time they were A, not as good, and B, it was barely real time with 1 GPU per user. But obviously 1 GPU per user doesn't scale too well, right? Especially with the new China tariffs. So yeah, like you asked, like, was this expected? And it's like, well, by that point we had failed so much time that the default expectation is to keep failing. Like we never expected to win, but we knew we were gonna keep going, even though the expectation is not to win. It was kind of like, oh, expectation is eventually we'll figure it out. But right now, right this second, it's probably gonna go like every other launch. So when it blew up, there was a great, pleasant, but also painful surprise, because scaling brings a lot of pain too. Yeah. And then what I would say is that, but we did know, or we did believe from the beginning, back then, still do, that real time is the way to go, because at least for creative tools, at some point we came up with an example that made it kind of obvious. It's like you look at Photoshop and even the 1.0 that was 1987, I think, even that version gave you real time feedback as you move stuff around. And I think this was way before GPUs. So even then real time was kind of like a baseline. So you look at Photoshop, you look at a guitar, you look at a piece of paper and like pen, you always need like that real time thing. And what do people like Apple with the iPad Pro Pen announce? Zero latency. Like that's like the value proposition of any creative tool. It's almost like it's necessary.
And so that's a great thing, because now kind of in hindsight it was obvious, but at the time it wasn't. I'm curious, so you mentioned from the beginning you were thinking about real time, but the technology was not there yet, and there happened to have maybe 2 years since it was at the right moment in time. What happened? Maybe you can walk us through some of those lessons in those 2 years where you have that high conviction on what was going to happen, but you maybe didn't knew when.
But that's exactly. We always would say to investors like this is gonna happen. We just don't know when. And we were like maybe in 3 months or literally maybe in 3 years. Like genuinely, like there is. I feel like it's like our default is to stop predicting only like if it's gonna happen, yes or no. And if it's gonna happen, we try to position the company, the tools we design, the team we assemble, like towards that future we know it's gonna happen. So for example, we were like since the absolute beginning, like 2022, we were like, I remember having a conversation with Victor being like, maybe we should document our functions, not because of it's a good practice or whatever, but because we want an AI to be able to read this and it's going to be able to help us program better. And it sounded so stupid back then. And now, like, if I mention it, it's suddenly it's obvious. Like everyone's like, dude, of course.
I have to ask you, now that real time is a thing, what's the next kind of trend that you're now thinking about that it's not obvious for the rest of the market?
I don't know if I'm able to say something that's not obvious because back then we were like almost like the misfits, the people that nobody was paying attention to. So whatever we say was not obvious and stupid. Whereas I feel like now everything we say is obvious and stupid. So like, but if I were to say something, is that I would just echo many of the things that we still have. We just keep hammering to everyone we talk to, which is in the case of creativity is not going to be replaced or disappear. That is something that I think some people are starting to question because of the power of LLMs or even diffusion models. And it's like just because creativity is not going to disappear doesn't mean that stuff is not going to disappear. Stuff will get replaced, but like stuff as in like tasks, maybe in some cases even jobs, like complete jobs. But I think if you dabble with the technology and follow the history, you will realize that there is a huge need for creativity still. I guess like where creativity means is in a way is almost like combining things that most people don't think could be combined sometimes, right? Like that's what many creatives do, not just in the design and artistic fields. So I feel like that skill is even more important now than ever because it's like now we have this probabilistic computer, probabilistic paradigm, like machine learning and AI. Like now it's time where somebody who has deep domain specific knowledge of something that I have no idea about, this is the time where they shine and they apply that to that domain specific thing, like combining seemingly unrelated industries, such as like I saw the other day one doctor that realized they could just make software for their clinic. And it's like, yeah. So
Yeah.
like that's gonna shift everything. But the main idea we wanna say here, like to summarize, is like it's okay to be afraid, but not to panic. If that makes sense. Like when you're about to do something important, like go on a podcast with a lot of people or go on stage or do something, you get nervous, right? But something most likely something beautiful is about to happen. Like you're gonna go and do a great show at a theater or you're gonna give a speech and it's gonna go great. Well, but that doesn't mean that it's not fearful, right? Like and you're nervous. So I feel like that's why it feels like that. It's like everyone knows that something great is coming. We're all nervous in one way or another. Some care about what skills are useful, how do I use this, I don't know how to use that, whatever it is. But like something great is coming and the worst thing you can do when there is a wave coming that you can surf and have fun and exploit or leverage or whatever word you want to use is to do nothing. So no, like creatives, this is your moment to shine actually.
And speaking I love that. And speaking of the creatives, one of the things that Krea has is that it caters to a wide variety of users. So you have kind of the hobbyist. I even personally use it. If you look at my LinkedIn picture, it was done thanks to Krea.ai. And then you have like the serious users, like the perplexities or the more corporate, if you may call it. As you think about building, how do you build taking into account like the broad range of profiles that are using the Krea platform?
No, that's a great question because that's something we ask ourselves during a long time because we were like, on the one side, we were like, every investor and people are like, but shouldn't you focus? Like, shouldn't you focus on a certain use case? Or That's where we discovered the term of ICP, like ideal customer persona or whatever it was. And and it's like, I don't know, sounds right, but at the same time, then my what I know about AI was like, yeah, but I don't know, if we remove labels for a moment, almost in a very, for the lack of a better term, like Buddhist kind of way, you're nothing, like remove ego, remove labels. You're not a photographer, you're not a designer, you're just you, right? Like there's whatever, and like sometimes you grab, like you probably yourself, like sometimes you grab a camera, sometimes you are writing an email, sometimes you're on a spreadsheet, sometimes you're having fun with a friend, and or you're giving a speech. Like, does that make you a public communicator or a photographer, or like, right? It's like you're all of the things at the same time. So then the way we were thinking about it is like, we want to make a tool that allows people to manipulate AI, like control it, like these vectors, these high dimensional data, there's no controls. It feels so anti-humane. So we wanted to bring back the humanity to it. Like, no, we feel that you can control it. We just need to figure it out at the engineering level and then at the product level. Once we've done that, I know that the amount of people that is gonna use this is so many, because it's like, who wants, it's like asking like, who wants an image? It's like, I don't know, an executive wants an image for their pitch deck, a marketing person wants it for their ad, a photographer, even like people just to show their family. Like, there's so many people want an image, right? And then there's so many that I don't even know that they wanted an image, but they did. Which is so interesting to me, because precisely the people like Y Combinator that are like known for make something people want. And then when I think of something that clearly people will want, then they start asking stuff like, what's your ideal customer? And what's just like, it's like, go back to your own roots. You have the answer. But to be fair, like, I didn't have expectations that this is going to be something that a lot of people would want. I just know that many types of people will want. So it is a challenge in the way that, yeah, like a mom making a meme versus a professional 3D modeler have complete different backgrounds potentially, but also at one point they actually may want the exact same thing, like by pure chance. Like both of them may want like a cloud, one for a poster, the other one wants the cloud to put it in a 3D scene as a texture map. So then how the hell do you make a UI that caters to both? The way I think about this is, with AI, for the first time, this needed separation of simple tool but not powerful versus very complex tool, but or very powerful tool but very complex. This wall has disappeared, in my opinion. Like, I think one of the reasons why Krea was something very exciting to me is because I was like, oh my god, you can. What's the expression? Like, you can have your cake and eat it too, or something like that. So I was like, oh, we can have a Canva and a Photoshop at the same time. Like, I think AI allows you to do that, because suddenly, guess what? You can talk to the tool itself. The tool will be able to teach you about how it works. Like, hey, I'm a new person. How do I do this on Krea? And then it tells you, like Krea tells you itself, no manual. You can read the manual if you want. The caveat for how you build is that I actually think that you can now have like a Canva and a Photoshop at the same time. Can have the simplicity of Canva, but the powerfulness of Photoshop. This is like a first time. Like, we've never been able. You had to choose, and I think this dichotomy now is a fake one. Like, it used to be that you had to choose between powerful or simple. I think now, no, you can have something extremely simple and then make really complex things because, like, of the power of AI. But even without the power of AI, even if the UI is a little bit complex, you can ask the tool. It literally speaks your language. Like, you can talk to the tool. That's never been possible before. And then there's a whole rabbit hole that I'm not going to enter unless you want, which is generating interfaces on the fly.
I actually would love to do that. Last year, I made a report with a couple of colleagues on generative UI, and we did an event around it. And I would love you to get your take on the future of it. So far, at least what I've been seeing, it's been used to do the offline kind of generation, more like help you do some templates that then in real time you select between templates, but it's not like true real-time generative in most cases. I would love to get your thoughts on how you think the interfaces will evolve and what role generative UI will play.
So, like, one very important caveat, or I guess pessimistic kind of view is, Like, because it's easy to dream, right? Oh my God, everything is gonna be made tailored for everyone. But like the reality is, most people like we're all the same, right? Like we like there's advantages in us being so similar, right? Like each person to each other. Like now we can manufacture glasses, and because everyone has roughly the same head shape, and with a little bit of adjusting, you can make like glasses at scale, and now everything's cheap. Well, sort of the same for UI. Like the fact that we have UI frameworks that mostly do the same thing allows us to make UIs at scale that allows us for every company to have like their own UI kind of thing. But it is true that there is, yeah, I guess the term is progressive. Maybe this is a better, like, this is how I think about generative AI, which is like, I want more like progressive UI. And by progressive, I mean, this comes from web development, where there's this term called progressive enhancement, which is that you should have a very simple website, no JavaScript, almost no nothing. And then the website works, like it's functional. But if you have a better connection and you can download JavaScript on the background, the website kind of becomes better. Like it becomes more reactive, it starts having animations. But since the moment you downloaded the first file, the website was already working. You didn't have to wait for the JavaScript and all of these things to load. So in a sort of similar way, I've been thinking that maybe you want a very simple UI, and then once this UI knows, or this program knows better what you want, then it starts offering you a UI that you are already familiar with, but it's on demand based on what you want to do. So an example is, imagine you start with something like Google, and then you're like, can you help me do my taxes? And then a file drop appears, or a camera, or it asks you, okay, do you have this form? Yes, no, I don't even know what that form is. Then it's like, okay, I don't know what the form is. It explains it to you, or yes, I have it. Okay, is it a PDF or a camera, or you want to take a picture of it now? It's like, oh, I have it on PDF. And then it immediately opens, not even a drag and drop, literally it opens your Finder, or shows you like a drag and drop. So there you go, it's being generated on the fly based on what you want, but rooted on primitives that you're familiar with. So then it will not be like completely new to you. And to me, this simple, but it can get complex, but it's not complex until you need it, and it also is rooted in UI that you're familiar with, seems like resonates with me. I don't know if that's exactly the way to go, but it feels like that's the way to go. And by the way, that's how, like, we're seeing hints of this, for example, in Cursor, where you're asking stuff, and then you say, like, the coding tool, right? And then you're like, oh, I need to, whatever, remove all this dark and light mode stuff. And then what does it do? It calls the terminal UI, let's call it the terminal UI, lists all your files, and then it keeps going from there. So what you see, like, it opened the terminal because it needed it for a moment, and then it discards it. So maybe it's almost like this fast food UI, you know, like it's almost like like today we barely repair stuff and it's not made for durability. It's like, no, I'm going to make a UI really fast for your purpose and then throw it away. So throw away UI maybe.
No, but I agree with that framework around the generative portion, but you also want some primitives that people are used to. And at the end, like we had a panel when we released this report, and one person was saying at the end of the day, yes, they are personalized interfaces, but still there is kind of a finite way that you can really present data to a user in a way that's intuitive. So love that thought. Related to this point, I was reading kind of a lot of the press releases around the round, and one of your investors was highlighting how the two of you have a great product taste. Where do you think that product taste come from? And do you also have any advice related to that product design for other founders building now in the AI space?
As in, one is just paying attention, like, which is really hard, like paying attention to the world because we're surrounded by almost infinite complexity. So paying attention is taxing, but it's one of the necessary things. Then having sympathy, which is like, can you put yourself in the shoes of the person who's using your product? And then the third one would be to like just deliberate practice. Like you try, you make things, and that's how you become better at making things. Sounds stupid, but it works. Like you go to the gym and you become strong if you do go every time. Like literally, you can do the gym really bad and you will still get strong. But then obviously you can start optimizing. So those are the three core ingredients. The unintuitive ones I would say is the first and second. The second, the having sympathy. Sometimes it's you putting yourself in the shoes of the other person, but also it can be like maybe you don't have the capacity to visualize or really feel how another person would feel. That's okay. You can just start using your own product, or you can give your product to someone and then pay attention to how they use it. And then that way you don't even need sympathy. You can literally just observe someone using your product. You don't even need to put yourself in their shoes. They are already doing that part. But obviously, if you have sympathy, the advantage is that you don't need to go on an interview or set up this whole thing to try, because suddenly you can just do it yourself. You can do the mental exercise. And the paying attention part is like, it's about taking, like by default we take things for granted. We assume they, like, black boxes will do magic, and it's kind of like wondering how things work or asking yourself why is something there, like why right now, if I'm looking at the Riverside, the software we're using to record, why is it purple? There could be no border, but there is a border. Does that mean that we're recording? I don't know. Maybe if I use more the app, it will see how it will go from no border to border, and suddenly, oh, so basically they're putting a signal that will tell the user that this thing is recording. So you just do that with everything, like with the round corners of tables, with why is this button to the right and not to the left? Oh, because most people are right-handed. That makes sense. Wait, but it's to the left if I'm in this country. Why? Oh, because it's an Arabic country and they read from right to left. Okay, like there's so much stuff like that, and I think you can just learn by paying attention.
I think those are amazing and especially very practical tips. On the first point, you mentioned one thing that I've been thinking a lot about, and we spoke about a little bit, is focus. So with AI, the amazing thing, as you mentioned, is you can do so many things. And also, we are still very early in this generative AI wave that there is so much to build. As you think about, but at the same time, you have a limited amount of bandwidth also in the team. How do you think about like, where to prioritize your energy, your resources?
On the team's attention, I would say that is like a big part of what Victor does rather than me. I just try to support him there, and like I would say that like since the beginning, I was aware that one, like if you have, for example, two co-founders, it's very important that one clearly sets the vision, because I feel like if there's this kind of like 50-50, these two are equal, then like that will only dilute the vision, and what you want is point and going into one direction. So even if sometimes I actually feel strongly about things, like the way I prioritize the team's attention is by me only raising the flag if I think something really bad is about to happen, because otherwise I know I trust completely, like almost blindly, what Victor wants to do. And then also like try to find the blind spots he has. Like if I can find something that he didn't think about, I'll just like, hey, did you think about this? And many times he's like, no, I didn't. And then he switches. So there you go. Like that's how I help. But in terms of how the team works, I would say that is definitely like, I cannot take credit for it. Like it would be Victor, and I just try to support him as best as I can. But for my attention, yes, I basically think of it as a resource allocation problem in the same way that one would invest. Like, where would I invest my money? Where would I invest my time? Where would I invest my attention? Is the exact same way. I feel like, in general, the approach of you can take like a conservative or an aggressive approach in stocks, where you can be like, okay, I'm going to invest in this thing, this only stock, and it's extremely risky, but it may pay off. An example of that would be like a PhD that may work on a very, very particular problem, and they may actually come up with a vaccine or some kind of procedure that changes humanity completely. But then, like, you really gotta be sure that you wanna spend your time there. In our case, because everything is so chaotic in generative AI world, I would say that I constantly ask myself at least once a week deeply, what have I been working on and why should I work on? It is true that with time, more answers are coming. I think more number of things
Yeah.
are coming, so it's becoming harder to actually focus, because I was like, oh my God, all of this is important. I would say that I take a look as in like literally as if it was investment. I would be like, okay, I'm going to spend 90 or 80% of my time on 1 to 3 things. Usually those go aligned with what Victor and I have discussed, and we said this is gonna be kind of like the vision for the company. But then, yeah, 10 to 20%, I go on like a rabbit hole about something that is potentially useless. And many times it pays off really, really great. So I would say that that's my framework. An example of that is, I don't know, sometimes I would spend a lot of time going on a random Reddit where they're talking about Krea, and I would just put comments and be like, but what? And then we may find out about something we had no idea. But most of the time it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
But when it works, it's amazing.
But that's a good framework. And one of the things that it's very visible, it's kind of the front end of everything you enable with Krea. But I would imagine on the back, there are so many things happening to enable both those real-time features supporting over 1 million users. Can you share maybe like one or the two key optimizations and engineering that maybe people don't see on the front that you think Krea has like really innovate on?
We actually mentioned some of this a little bit briefly on our blog post, where Krea is often seen only as like a wrapper of tools and that's it. And like in a way it's good, because sometimes people think we're only a product that works fast. I think that's great because it means like the tool is getting out of your way. Like when you have a hammer and you use it, you actually are never thinking about the hammer, and that's great. That means that the hammer is part of you. You are not even thinking like the car. You're not thinking about the car. You're just driving. You're just thinking, where do I want to go? So on the one side, I want Krea to feel like that, almost like a mind reader kind of thing. Is like just going. But on the other side is, I guess, it's bad from a recruiting point of view. It's been like surprising, and from an investor point of view, because so you only do this. It's like, no, obviously we do more than that. In terms of what do we do, optimizations, everyone talks about GPUs, but nobody's talking about the CPUs in those GPUs. Like at some point you realize that if you were to buy or rent CPU time on many platforms, the cost the CPUs of the machines that have the GPUs cost, like, it's a lot. Like the CPU ones, I'm not even talking about the GPU, like the CPU itself that you need to support like high-end GPUs are really, really high. So I feel like there's a lot of people out there that have, like many companies that have potentially thousands of GPUs, and it's like, they still, I don't know, use a web service to deploy like their app, and it's like, dude, you have so much CPU already there, completely unused because you're doing AI. So like the CPU is doing nothing most of the time. So then we actually put many things on the CPU, and guess what? That's faster because suddenly everything is in the same data center, sometimes even the same machine. But then that's also more expensive. It makes us a better company because we get more bang for our buck, as they say, right? Like, well, for what some people may pay a Redis as a service provider, a database as a service, and the GPUs, we're actually only paying for GPU. So guess what? Our margins are better. And that requires more engineering effort. And some people are like, oh, that's bad because now it's going to be harder for engineers to work on this. And all I'm seeing is like, yeah, but now my engineers are better. Like, we're learning more. Yes, it requires hard work, but it's like, I don't know, is that the reason why you don't want to do it? It's like, oh, but it requires hard work. It's like, well, yeah, everything worth doing requires hard work.
No, that makes sense. And one of the things I saw also in the press release was that you have some intentions to cover a bit more on the voice AI space.
Well, I would say we're talking more about like sound rather than voice. How we're thinking about is that we notice that people make images with us. They may, I don't know, a texture for a 3D model. Now they can make the 3D model. They want to make this kind of like cinematic shots sometimes. So obviously you need some sound/music there. So we're looking into that, but we're not that interested in stuff like, I don't know, like stuff like 11 Labs is doing, for example, like transcripts and captioning. Like maybe it'll come, but I don't know. Many of the times the way we work is we can like strike a partnership with someone who's doing it great already, if possible. Like that's what we've done it with many of the video models that we have on Krea. Like it's a partnership between the company that made the model and us.
And related to those models on the more video and image aspect, you have collected a lot of data around both what the prompts and the images that users are interested about generating, the edits that the user makes to those images. Any interest at all in thinking about either training your own model, or really you don't think that's the best use of kind of the company's resources there?
No, on the contrary, like that's one of the main reasons for why we did the Series B. In the blog post that we just announced, you can find the blog post on Krea.ai/blog or Krea.ai/funding. There we say that we started an AI research lab, and there's a few people already working. And in fact, I think like we have already submitted at least one paper, not more. And we've even gone to conferences like SIGGRAPH where we've shown our work too. But we are going into research. We've already gone. However, how we work is different to some other companies out there. Some companies out there are like, we have this research idea or thesis. We raise a lot of money such that we can get the GPUs and the researchers to work on that thesis. Then we release something. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not, whatever. And then because of how great that model is, maybe they become viral and then they try to make an app or whatever. Whereas ours is completely inverse. We're like, we start with the product. Then the product, we realize that it could do way better if, for example, starts working faster. So then we optimize the infra. And then we get to a point where like, oh my God, like now, yes, there's more stuff we can do on product, there's more stuff we can do on infra, and we do it. But we're getting outsized returns if, for example, we add a new model. Then that's when we say that we've earned the right to drill, like we've earned the right to do research. However, unlike other companies, we're not going to be like, you can only use my model. You can only use the Krea model. No, we will release a Krea model, but it will not be the only model you can use because we get it that sometimes, I don't know, another company did amazing work in a certain type of aesthetic. So then we should be able to help you, right? Be like, okay, you are going to use that model. But then how we think about the research lab is you have closed source models that are great. You have a lot of open source out there, but that it requires your local machine and setting up, download Python and download this and set up CUDA drivers. And if you have a Mac, bad luck, set up a cloud thing. So it's like a lot, but so like messy and sometimes it's not optimized. And then we have the stuff that we think there should be research on that there isn't. So the way how we think about Krea, okay, recover. The way how we think about Krea is, can we bring all of this? Like we're gonna integrate with the people that are doing great work with their model. We're gonna give you access to the latest open source AI research, and we're gonna do research on aesthetics, controllability, and hyper-personalization, because those three areas of research we don't think are being focused as much. Everyone's like faster and bigger and better quality. I was like, wait, what about if I have a million models? Which one is the best for me? Like, there doesn't seem to be that much research there.
No, I can't wait to try them. And I wanted to ask you two last questions. The first one is, I know you were at some moment in your life in New York and you decided to move in SF. I'm curious to ask you, what are your thoughts on New York City as a place to build in AI?
Very important caveat, I've never built a lot of AI in New York because I'm in SF, because we only were there like a few months before we moved here. I mean, it's almost like a meme inside the company for us. So take it with a huge punch of salt, in the sense of when we go to New York, there's so much to do. There's so many industries, so much fun, so many people to, right? Like, what, like 8 million or something. So then the problem is, like, we have the hunches like, dude, like, you're so gonna get distracted. There's no way you're gonna do deep work in this city. And hey, that may be a skill issue, right? Like, that may be just us not being able to focus. I don't know, not being in that situation. And companies like Runway or Hugging Face are there. But I don't know, like, I feel like there's no coincidence that, I don't know, like, OpenAI was here and Anthropic is here. And then there's the argument to be made that is like, yeah, but like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, they say it's going to be in SF, they go to SF and then they do it, but they actually could have done it elsewhere. I want to say that it doesn't matter, but I don't think it's true. I think SF is a place that you should, okay, this is my answer. My answer is, SF is a place that I think you should at least come to, be for at least a couple months, maybe at least 1 year, and you will be able to see why this place is so magical. My best guess for it is the unusual combination of like venture money with talent, with ideas from research coming from universities like Berkeley or Stanford, combined with the fact that this city is so weird. Like, there's so many weird people in this city, but that's good because weird people will have always heard about the weirdest thing and it will be like normal. So then the craziest ideas will be won't be as judged here. They'll be like, oh, that's cool. Like you would say I don't know, the craziest thing that somebody can pitch you, like at an event, you would be like, oh yeah, I'm genetically modifying babies, something like that. And then instead of being like, what the fuck? No, they ask you, oh, are you using CRISPR or what technique are you using? You know, it's like, so I feel like that, I've never been in a place where stuff like that happens.
Yeah, no, there's a reason the biggest companies have come from there. And the last one, this being a Latin podcast, I have to ask you, what has been like Latin American usage of the Crea platform? Any insight you can share around it?
Yeah, no, it was actually been surprising because like I was pleasantly surprised when I saw that Brazil is actually one of our top paying countries. And I realized that it's because apparently there's like some sort of booming like architecture industry in Brazil, and they are using the Crea enhancer to enhance their images using AI. The use case is kind of clear if you come from architecture visualization. Like I used to work actually there. So the use case is that suddenly you don't need 3 hours to do like a 4K resolution render. You actually only like need like a few minutes or less than an hour to make the 1K one, and then you make K with AI, the 1K to 4K jump.
Yeah.
And like the fact that that only takes you a couple, like I don't know, $20 a month, like the amount of hours you're saving is actually absurd. So that's one use case that I was so happy. I was like, damn, it's so interesting that of all places where architects are gonna start using AI was Brazil. I was like, I don't know, I feel like you would imagine, I don't know, the US, right? Or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's Brazil. And and then I would say there's like quite a few usage coming from Spain and like many Latin American countries. And I think it comes from the fact that both Victor and I are from Spain. I'm half Venezuelan. So like naturally many of our first users were Spaniards. And I feel like from there, kind of like word of mouth, it goes to Latin America in one way or another. I'm definitely proud. I feel like there's like we're definitely underrepresented, but I don't know. It feels cool to be like a Venezuelan working in AI in San Francisco. You know.
Yeah, that's definitely not a minor thing, and part of the reason for this podcast to highlight this amazing stories. No, Diego, congratulations on all the progress, and thank you for joining us. It was great speaking with you.
Thank you. Same.